The story of Max Payne tells us about the very sad fate of the aforementioned Max Payne. Max conducts a private investigation, the main goal of which is to take revenge on those who were responsible for the death of his family. Since the game tells a story in the form of flashbacks, we can see its finale right after the game starts. The images that appear in front of our eyes quickly allow us to guess that there was a big shooting on the streets of New York. However, we don't have much time to analyze everything, because just a moment later, we are taken back 3 years, specifically to August 1998, when the whole story begins. Max Payne, a New York police detective, decides to leave the service to look after their loved ones instead. Working in the local police is a hard job. Every day is a great risk. What's more, it is very easy to get enemies who may try to commit various crimes in the name of revenge, directed not only at the main character, but also at his loved ones. To sum up, it is for these and many other reasons that Max decides to leave. Unfortunately, an unpleasant surprise awaits him when he returns home from work. It turns out that 3 criminals, high on a synthetic drug called Valkyr, broke into Payne's property in New Jersey. Granted, Max kills the thugs, but he does it at the wrong time because they have already murdered his family, his wife, and a small child. These sad events, in connection with the encouragement of his best friend, Alex Balder, make Max decide to join the ranks of the DEA, an organization dealing with the fight against drugs. After 3 years of working on the Valkyr case, the unit manages to discover that the person responsible for the distribution is Jack Lupino, the underboss of the Punchinello crime family. To find out more, Payne infiltrates the structures of the mafia while being undercover. He stays in touch with the DEA agency through his friend Alex Balder and a man named BB, who also works for the DEA. These 2 men keep the communication between Max and the headquarters. One day, BB tells Max to go to the subway station on Roscoe Street, where Alex will be waiting for him, whom Max has not seen face to face since he began his mission as the undercover agent. This was a bit suspicious for Max, and as it turned out a moment later, he was right. Max does not encounter Alex anywhere, but a group of thugs instead. It turns out that Payne got into the middle of a bank robbery, from which the criminals wanted to steal the bonds of Esser Corporation, a large pharmaceutical company run by Nicole Horn. The action itself seems to be going according to plan. It would seem that it would be a really good day for Payne, especially considering that the man thwarted a robbery attempt. Payne eventually also finds Alex, who unfortunately gets fatally shot by an unknown person. But what's even worse, Payne is falsely accused of Alex's murder and is consequently pursued by the police led by Commissioner Jim Bravura. What may be a bit surprising here is why Max doesn't pay any attention to the man who arranged this meeting, Agent BB. We will come back to this later. Meanwhile, Max goes to a certain hotel, which was a kind of business center for Lupino, filled with various illegal activities. When he arrives there, Max meets the Finito brothers. During the conversation, it turns out that Lupino probably learned about the DEA operation. Of course, this also explains the Finito brothers, who are very hostile towards Payne. A moment after the successful battle with gangsters, Max finds a letter written by Vinny Gognitti, a guy who is Jack Lupino's right-hand man. Max learns that there will soon be a drug exchange at the hotel, the safety of which is to be ensured by Rico Muerte, a local pimp. While fighting his way through more and more enemies, Max comes across another letter, which shows that the head of the Punchinello family, Don Angelo, who was not previously suspected of having any connections with Valkyr, knew perfectly well what was being traded in his territory. As an interesting fact, it is worth adding that Max also finds the diary of a prostitute named Candy Dawn, who made extra money on the side by secretly recording porn videos in which she and her clients played the main roles. As you can see, amateur brothel porn has always enjoyed great popularity. A little later, Max eventually gets to the place of the transaction. He kills his opponents, and a moment later, he runs into Rico Muerte, who is having fun with the aforementioned prostitute. Rico initially runs away to the next room, and Max has to deal with the other thugs in the room, but in the end, Rico also bites the dust. Max sees an old telephone switchboard at the back of the room and learns that Gognitti has been informed about Payne's action at the hotel. Vinny is furious that his men can't take care of this one cop, Gognitti orders Max to be killed immediately, and a moment later, a whole herd of heavily armed rivals begins to attack him. After killing all of Gognitti's people, Payne leaves the hotel and goes to the tenement houses belonging to Jack Lupino. When he gets there, Max witnesses the beef between the Punchinello family and the Russian mafia, where a certain Vladimir is in charge. Vlad is a character who is like a thorn in the eyes of both Lupino and the entire Punchinello mafia. There are many explosions in Jack's headquarters. This gives Max a great opportunity because the criminals inside are a bit worried and confused. However, he must be careful because the building may contain not only armed rivals, but also planted explosives. Max then goes inside to get Lupino. While defeating opponent after opponent, Payne comes across a ringing telephone at one point. It turns out that Alfred Woden, a United States senator, is involved in matters related to Valkyria and wants to help Max. Woden informs Payne that the police are on their way and that he will call Max once again soon. And just like Woden said, Jim Bravura and his people arrive at the crime scene shortly after the phone conversation. He orders Max to surrender, but he doesn't care. Not only does Payne avoid being caught, but he soon finds Vinnie Gognitti. The initial confrontation ends with Vinnie getting shot and running away. Max gives chase because he knows that the terrified Vinnie, facing death, may prove to be a good informant. The chase becomes extremely exciting, especially when Gognitti decides to catch the New York subway. Despite a long escape starting from the subway roofs to the roofs of buildings, Vinnie is captured by Payne at some point. Max puts a gun to the capo's head and then extracts information from him, eventually finding out that Lupino is hiding in the Ragnarok Club. Ragnarok is a nasty place, filled with occultism and shady people who enjoy sadomasochistic rituals. Seeing all this, Max Payne realizes that Lupino has gone completely crazy. It is possible, or even certain, that Lupino was constantly high on the Valkyr, which in the end contributed greatly to his total madness. After a long duel, Lupino falls to the ground. And then, out of nowhere, Mona Sachs appears. She is the sister of Lisa Punchinello, who is the wife of Don Angelo. Anyway, Mona suggests that they should both focus on getting Angelo Punchinello as the main target. However, the beginning of the fruitful cooperation goes in a strange direction because the woman offers Max whiskey with a touch of Valkyr. Max loses consciousness. He has terrible nightmares. When Payne wakes up, it turns out that he is in the basement of Jack Lupino's hotel, and a certain guy is standing next to him, Frankie the Bat Niagara. Frankie is one of the Punchinello family members. He beats Max with a baseball bat. When Mr. Bat goes for a beer and a break, Max somehow manages to break free, kill his torturer, and escape from the building. Shortly after, Max encounters Vladimir, who surprisingly has good intentions towards Payne. Vladimir asks Max to get him back a ship commanded by Boris Dime, who has turned his back on Vladimir. The boss of the Russian mafia assures Payne that he will do himself a favor because Boris works with the Punchinellos. If the weapons on the ship end up in the hands of the Italians, they will become an indestructible power. In exchange for taking over the ship and killing Boris, Max will gain a really solid range of weapons from the Russians, which will allow him to finish his vendetta. Payne carries out a successful operation on the ship, kills Boris, and takes as many weapons as he can to declare open war against Don Angelo. After that, he meets with Vladimir, who tells him that if he needs anything, the Russian mafia will be happy to help him. Payne gains a very strong ally. Max then decides to call Don Punchinello. Of course, the man is mad when he hears Max Payne on the phone. Nonetheless, Max proposes a meeting with Don, as he has the valuable cargo that was on the ship belonging to the Italians. The famous restaurant becomes the meeting place. As one could expect, Max falls into a trap, but luckily he emerges unscathed. As soon as Payne gets out of the building, he bumps into Vladimir's black Mercedes, which knows what happened when he saw clouds of smoke coming out of the restaurant. Escorted by Vlad, Max reaches the Punchinello Manor, where he kills the trio consisting of total psychos, Joe Salem, Vince Mugiano, and Pilot Providence. The trinity of the Punchinello Mafia are guys assigned to purge places and people whom Don points the finger at. Before Max even got inside, he noticed that someone had left the back door open. He also encountered many dead bodies, which is why he immediately knew that Mona Sachs had beaten him to it. Once inside, Max kills all the members of the trio, but also finds the dead wife of Don Punchinello. A little later, Max also gets to Don himself, who begs for mercy like a dog, saying that he didn't know anything and only did what he was told. Suddenly, the whole squad of mysterious agents with the woman in charge rushes into the office. The men kill Don Angelo while the unknown woman injects Max with a lethal dose of Valkyr. Max went totally crazy. He fell into a vortex of strange dreams in which he saw his wife and his child's bloody bed. He had déjà vu, and even at some point thought he was the protagonist of a comic book and a video game. Fortunately enough, Max somehow comes to his senses and decides to go to the metal foundry named Cold Steel. Surprisingly, there is a military bunker in the basement of the foundry, and there, Max learns the terrible truth. It turns out that Valkyr was a project of the American government called Project Valhalla. The name is not accidental, because according to Nordic mythology, Valhalla is a place where the greatest warriors went to feast and endlessly practice the craft of war. The project aimed to create a substance that would turn soldiers into very mentally and physically strong units, well-trained units, prepared for the most difficult battles. Even though the project was suspended at some point due to unsatisfactory results, it was still illegally continued. And unfortunately, the drug junkies who murdered Payne's family were one of the guinea pigs. In all this, Max also witnesses the actions of 2 government agents who launch a self-destruct procedure in the bunker so that the entire project remains a secret. Everything explodes, and Max, once again by luck, escapes unscathed. After the whole incident in Cold Steel Metal Foundry, Agent BB tries to contact Max. Interestingly about the action at Roscoe Street Station, Max slowly connects the dots and begins to suspect that BB has to be hiding something. The situation is very suspicious and ambiguous. When the gentlemen meet, it quickly turns out that BB started working for someone who is connected to the plot. Max has to face a whole bunch of enemies again to catch the corrupt DEA agent and former friend. When he is done, Payne is then contacted by Alfred Woden. Alfred Woden asks Max Payne to arrive in the Asgard building, where he learns more shocking truths. Alfred is a guy from the so-called Inner Circle. The Inner Circle is made up of people who worked on the Project Valhalla. For some reason, they want to reveal the whole truth about Valkyr and the entire project to the world. This is the moment when Max learns about Nicole Horn, the owner of the pharmaceutical company named Acer Corporation, who is interested in Valkyr. Suddenly, everything becomes clear. It was Nicole who entered Don Angelo's mansion with her people. It was Nicole who almost killed Max by giving him a theoretically lethal dose of Valkyr. It was for her that the Agent BB responsible for Alex Balder's death worked and killed Alex himself. Alfred says that once Max gets rid of her, the Inner Circle will be able to protect him, and all charges against Max will be dropped. During Max's conversation with Alfred and the simultaneous discussions of the Inner Circle, government agents suddenly burst in. It would seem that everyone died. However, the plan turns out to be a hoax, and Woden is still alive. The plan therefore seems to be valid. Max travels to the Acer Corporation headquarters to seek justice. Max is doing great, killing each one of the enemies without any difficulty. Interestingly, Payne runs into Mona at some point, who is ordered by Nicole Horn to kill Payne. However, Mona Sachs seems to like Max so much that she refuses to kill him. But we all know that good moments tend to quickly turn into bad ones. Suddenly, more government agents came into action and started shooting. Mona fell to the floor of the elevator. It would seem that there is no rescue for her, and she is dead. Max kills the murderers, and when the doors of the elevator open once again, it turns out that there is nobody inside. So what happened to Mona? We don't know that. Max doesn't have time to think about it at this point though, because he has to get Nicole Horn. When he finally meets the woman face to face, it turns out that Max's wife knew about Project Valhalla. She stuck her nose where she shouldn't, getting documents she shouldn't even know existed. After Horn's conversation with Max, the woman runs straight to the helicopter, but eventually, due to Payne's actions, the machine does not even manage to take off. Horn dies in the spectacular helicopter crash, and Max turns himself into the police. Alfred Woden, standing in the crowd of onlookers during Max's arrest, seemed extremely pleased with the turn of events. Max now only has to wait for Woden to fulfill his promises, which will be a matter of time. In order not to miss the next videos, I highly recommend that you subscribe to the channel. I will also be very pleased if you rate today's video. In the meantime, take care, see you soon.